I'm Tiffany Roberts from the Legislative Analyst Office, and today my comments are going to focus on the economic analysis that's to be considered as part of the update to the AB 32 scoping plan. And I will be concise as well, so in the interest of time. AB 32 requires that the scoping plan be updated at least once every 5 years, and as part of the update, economic analysis should be conducted in order to evaluate if the state is on a path to achieving the maximum technologically feasible and cost-effective reductions of greenhouse gas emissions. For this scoping plan update, ARB has provided mostly qualitative information. In this updated document, for example, ARB states that since the measures are still in the early stages of implementation, it's difficult to assess their economic impacts. The document discusses the economic analysis, which was completed before the implementation of the original scoping plan, and it also discusses a future work plan to estimate the economic impacts of AB 32, which is to include input from a panel of economic advisors. These advisors are to help identify the metrics and methodologies that are needed to evaluate the overall costs and benefits of AB 32. ARB states that details of the macroeconomic modeling will be included in future updates to the scoping plan. However, in order for the legislature to make informed decisions today about the effectiveness of the scoping plan, it's important to have such information as part of this update. First, it'd be important to evaluate how well each measure has done so far and the marginal cost per ton of reductions to date. Ideally, the legislature needs an evaluation of the relative marginal cost and benefits of each of the measures included in the scoping plan so that it can evaluate which measures are most effective at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This information should then be used to inform whether some of the measures should be tweaked or potentially dropped altogether because they may not be as effective at achieving the overall goals of AB 32. And while it's true that most measures included in the scoping plan have only been in place for a few years, there are three key pieces of information which have either changed or that we have more information about and therefore could change the path forward. First, as we all know, the economy has begun to improve. This is a key data point. In order to give you a sense of the magnitude of the impact that economic activity has on greenhouse gas emissions, let's take a look back at the difference between the 2008 scoping plan and the update to the 2010 economic analysis of the scoping plan. The 2010 update was done in order to account for the downturn in the economy. That updated analysis revealed that the total annual reductions the state would need to achieve is only 80 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent annually by 2020 instead of the original 174 million metric tons of CO2e. This is important because it tells us that economic activity directly affects greenhouse gas emissions. That means the economic downturn essentially reduced the state's greenhouse gas emissions by greater than half its original goal. Therefore, consideration of such a data point is critical to be able to assess the best path forward. Second, even though the state's economy has begun to improve, according to the Energy Information Agency, gasoline consumption in the state has begun to decrease. This is due in part to the increased number of fuel-efficient vehicles on California's roads today. This data point would also be critical to include as part of the analysis of the updated scoping plan because it may indicate that the targets of some measures may need to be adjusted, or it could mean that some measures are no longer needed as part of the scoping plan. Lastly, current cap and trade allowance prices should also be taken into consideration as part of this analysis of the updated scoping plan. Allowances are currently trading at floor prices, which is a range of $11 to $12 per ton. Consideration of current allowance prices could indicate that it may be much more cost effective to eliminate some measures from the scoping plan and allow the cap and trade program to essentially absorb the emissions that those measures would have captured. Those are just three examples of critical pieces of information which could be used as part of this current update to the scoping plan. It's important to acknowledge that even though measures have been in place only a short while, these three data points would impact the outcome of any economic analysis of the scoping plan. As such, it would be important for the legislature to have such economic analysis in this version of the scoping plan rather than postponing such work until future scoping plan updates. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks. I'm